Hey everyone, welcome back to OG Spice Guy Market Updates, where we look beyond the label and into the fields, the farms, and the global forces shaping the organic spice world. Possibly the biggest force that shapes the spice industry is weather. It affects supply, quality, availability, and pricing. I'm getting this question a lot right now from customers. Are we heading into another El Niño? And if so, what does that mean for spice crops? Weather forecasts change. This is an early outlook and nobody has a crystal ball, but meteorologists are pretty confident there is going to be an El Niño event this year. The UN puts the probability at 90%. My goal today is to explain what we're looking out for, what it means for spices, and what buyers should be thinking about at this point in the year. We'll continue revisiting this topic in future market updates as new information becomes available. So let's start with the basics. What exactly is El Niño? El Niño is the warming of sea temperatures in the central and eastern Pacific Ocean. Now that may sound like something only scientists care about, but those temperature changes influence weather patterns all over the world, like wind and rainfall. These El Niño events typically occur every 2 to 7 years and can last from several months to an entire year. One important thing to understand is that it does not create the same weather everywhere. In some regions, we may see increased rainfall, whereas other places might actually get drier. It can also cause higher temperatures or extreme storms, depending on the region and the year. So think of El Niño as slightly nudging the atmosphere's steering wheel. The whole weather system reacts. I've worked with farmers for over a decade. Agriculture depends on predictable weather, and even small shifts can have significant consequences.
What are they predicting the outcomes for agriculture?
It's interesting. When we were at the ASTA meeting a couple of weeks ago, there was an agricultural meteorologist who did a presentation, and he was talking about how weather is created, if you will, in Southeast Asia. And so I thought that was super interesting, and it has to do with all the currents of the ocean.
Okay.
And so right now there's this warming that's happening in the Pacific Ocean. And so that creates the currents, which of course impact, water, moisture, evaporation, rainfall, etc.
So in your ASTA meeting, did they say, and this year that bump to the atmosphere is going to mean more rain in Southeast Asia, or more rain? Is rain the issue? I've heard wind too, but
I think it's actually drier conditions.
Okay.
There's a lot. I'll be very honest. Like, I'm hearing a lot,
right?
But what I'm hearing more than not is drier conditions.
Okay. See, in our last episode, I don't know if it was market updates or one of our deep dive podcasts, the green pepper shortage was because of a flood of water, right?
Correct.
It was oversaturated water in China. But you think the warnings of El Niño coming to us now are going to lean towards the dry side?
I think it's the drier season. We'll talk about it later in the episode, but like I've given this example before, like black pepper is pollinated by the rain.
Right.
And if the rains don't come, no pollination, no fruits, no berries.
Got it. No black pepper.
Yeah. Let's move on to discussing what El Niño means for Southeast Asia, where many of the world's spices are grown. This region is essential to products like black pepper, cloves, nutmeg, turmeric, and ginger. We've discussed many of these countries before on OG Spice Guy. Each of them plays a unique role in the spice trade. Vietnam is the world's largest exporter of black pepper, and India produces about 70% of the world's spices, the largest exporter by volume and value. Production is concentrated in relatively few growing regions, so what that means is if rainfall patterns change significantly in just one or two of these countries, it impacts the product all over the world. So let's talk about what to expect. I want to emphasize that every El Niño event is different. The severity, timing, and geographic impacts can vary significantly from one event to the next. In Southeast Asia, historically, El Niño has been associated with reduced rainfall, delayed monsoon activity, longer drying periods, and higher temperatures. So how does that impact agriculture? Well, first, soil moisture. Less rainfall generally means the soil is less moist. When that happens, growers may be faced with increased irrigation demands, and the plants can experience greater stress during their growth. Second, flowering and fruit development. If weather conditions become too dry or too erratic during critical stages, plants may produce fewer pepper berries, nutmeg fruits, or cardamom pods, which will result in lower yields months later. Third, harvest timing. Harvests could arrive earlier than expected or later. It depends on the rainfall, the temperature, and the crop. Fourth, processing challenges. This is after the harvest. Extended dry conditions can result in smaller berries, seeds, or fruits, which makes them more difficult to process. On the other hand, if there's heavy rain, it can create drying challenges, increase the mold risk, or raise quality concerns during processing. In other words, weather doesn't just affect quantity, it also affects quality as well. You know, we learned that black pepper is a berry.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see in the past we've had issues where there's not enough water, so the fruit is struggling to produce the meat inside the berry.
Okay.
So this is a really interesting challenge that we dealt with in the past, where you're getting these berries that are filling a jar, but we're not meeting the label weight because they weren't dense enough.
Yeah, they didn't have the water in them.
Exactly.
So it's a berry that has water in, then they dry it out.
In the case of black pepper.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dehydrated and sold as whole peppercorns or ground into different cut sizes.
And there's clearly a difference between having the meat full of water and then drying it out versus never getting meat.
Yeah, because think of it as like it's a hollow berry.
Yeah.
So like if you put it through a pepper grinder, you're just getting this external shell and there's not a ton of flavor there. So you're getting this like hollow product.
Yeah.
Whereas what you really want is like a really dense and heavy black peppercorn berry.
How big are they when they're robust? And
Black peppercorn?
Yeah.
Like the size of a coffee bean when it's fresh.
Right.
Maybe a little smaller than
And
a
then it
coffee
shrinks
bean.
down to like a half or a third of that.
Exactly.
Right. That's cool.
So I think these little anecdotes will draw it in for the buyer to be like, oh, okay. Because like on that one, that was actually talking about bulk density, which is a huge problem in the industry.
Got it.
For black pepper, if conditions in Vietnam are significantly drier than normal, growers would see reduced berry development and potentially smaller crop sizes. This could result in tighter availability and upward pressure on prices. So I think this is also really interesting. You got to think about it from the world of a grower. He's put in X thousands of dollars into growing this crop. Let's say those are lighter berries and it's weight. In the spice trade industry, everything's weight based.
Okay.
So he fills a container with so many sacks of the, black pepper, but the container is typically you get a container that's 40,000 pounds. Maybe that container is not 40,000 pounds. It's only, 35,000 pounds. So he's having those lighter berries. He's still going to charge the same price that he would for 40,000 pounds because of his sunk cost.
Yeah.
He put that much cost into it. Whether he got it or not, he's got to be compensated for that.
I feel like it should come to him, but I guess.
But he's the very beginning of the supply chain, so he dictates the price. So he's going to raise his price to somebody like a high quality organics, and then unfortunately we're going to have to pass it down the supply chain.
Got it. So it's almost like it would be he's charging for 40,000 pounds and only 35,000 show
Correct.
up. And
Correct.
you don't go,
So
hey, where's our extra 5,000?
Well, I mean, the price would be negotiated,
Yeah.
and he would tell us up front and say, okay, this is we're going to see it as a increased cost per pound.
Yeah, it matters to the bottom line.
It does. For Indonesian pepper production, one concern is the possibility of long dry periods. Different islands might experience different outcomes, which would lead to variability in yields and the quality. And that inconsistency can make sourcing more challenging for buyers. Indonesia is a major clove producer. Clove trees are sensitive to prolonged drought stress. Potential impacts include reduced flowering, lower bud formation, and ultimately smaller harvests. Do you know what is the largest consumer of cloves in the world? What industry consumes the most cloves?
Cigarettes. I think we've talked about it before.
Yeah.
Or otherwise, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
I used to smoke a clove or two.
Yeah. After the club.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't get the. It
Makes your mouth numb.
You don't inhale that stuff either. It's like a cigar.
It's just
that way.
taste. Just lip taste.
I'd rather have a cigar, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nutmeg trees are perennial crops, meaning weather impacts aren't immediate, but the concern is reduced fruit and lower yields. Both ginger and turmeric are highly dependent on moisture. Dry conditions once again mean smaller harvests and lower yields. Cardamom grows in the humid, rain-fed regions of southern India and relies on consistent moisture from monsoons. If the monsoon rains arrive late, become erratic, or fall below normal levels, growers can see fewer flowers, lower pod production, and greater variability in quality. Weather affects more than what happens in the field. We also pay attention to the secondary effects, the impacts that show up throughout the supply chain after the crop is harvested. One is processing. Spices require washing, drying, curing, and other processing steps. Imagine a pepper farmer that has grown a healthy crop but typically relies on sun drying. If there is unexpected rain, the drying process could take longer than usual. Another secondary effect is on logistics. Extreme weather affects transportation networks, container availability, trucking routes, and port operations. Lastly, market psychology. Markets react before actual crop losses occur because buyers react to the predicted risk. When they start hearing about El Niño, importers will try and secure inventory. Traders might be less willing to sell, available stocks tighten, volatility increases, and all of it pushes prices up. So what should buyers be doing right now? Well, at this stage, these are my recommendations. Monitor weather developments closely, maintain strong communication with suppliers, and consider securing inventory earlier than usual. If your business depends on spices sourced from Southeast Asia, now is the time to review your inventory position and maybe lock in your contract. We're still early in the season and forecasts can change, but weather risk is beginning to enter the conversation. Okay, thanks for listening. Every buyer should be aware of the potential risk of an El Niño. Keep in mind, we're still early in the season and forecasts can change. I'll continue watching the situation and giving updates as things progress. Until then, stay informed, plan ahead, and thanks for joining me on this market update. See you next time.